split between religion and art that people think happened in the modern age, that somehow religion left art and art left religion, and all of a sudden you didn't have pictures of crucifixions and things like that anymore. Instead, it just changed. Behind me is Anselm Kiefer's Book with Wings. Many of his works he's referencing Jewish mystical, Kabbalistic traditions, and pulls the mythologies of Jewish mysticism in with the literal histories of the world. Warhol is one of those people who, on first glance, probably has nothing to do with religion, but towards the end of his life, he began to reproduce Leonardo's Last Supper. It really was a religious search for him, and his life wasn't just sort of filled with this superficial kind of pop art. The idea of a comic book has some deep religious roots to it. It goes back to really East Asian Buddhist religious texts. And of course it evolves through time, and then you get a piece that seems to really have no bearing on anything religious at all anymore. To get down to the most elemental, most basic kind of structures we can find. Basically, it's a whole lot of crossed lines, and in a sense that's about as far as anybody could go to get down to the most minimal, basic kind of structure. And I think what's interesting about that is you think religiously about how symbols work, and you think about really the central sacred image of Christianity is two crossed lines, is the Christian cross. Two crossed lines is probably the most universal religious symbol in the history of the world. The four direction symbols within Native American traditions is basically a cross. The ancient Egyptian symbol of the Ankh is a cross. The ancient sign of perfection in China are two cross lines. So Christianity certainly made the cross a very prominent religious symbol, but it's also partly why it works is because it's the most primary possible symbol you could ever make. The piece here is Bill Viola's The Greeting. It's the story of Mary and Elizabeth. Elizabeth's child becomes John the Baptist, and Mary's child, of course, becomes Jesus Christ. And so here they are, they've both just heard the great news of themselves being pregnant, so they're making the announcement to each other. Through the technology, we can rethink this biblical text and all these ideas and these wonderful stories that go on throughout the Bible and throughout sacred texts around the world. There were various arguments in the 19th century, especially, that art became the new religion. Many people sort of saw the museum space sort of supplanting the older church and mosque spaces in the modern world. Ando's architecture is very influenced by Japanese gardens and Zen Buddhist inspired architecture. I'm not sure I would want to go and say this is a sacred space, but it's something very similar, right? We walk inside, we talk lower, we talk softly, we walk quietly, we change our attitudes, we change our interactions with each other, and a certain kind of ritualized process goes on as we look at the artworks within a museum space. And you can walk around this museum and you keep coming up against brand new ways to see the artwork, but also to experience yourself walking through space. So there's a lot of parallels to a sacred space, the way it's constructed, the way it affects our bodies, and the way we move and talk and think and feel differently in these spaces.